Good evening, Mr. Conley. Hello.
I was muted, sorry. How's your family doing? What day? Everybody good?
You're muted.
Can you hear me now? That makes sense. Yeah, sorry.
Good evening.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, what dear?
Hey, Joe, are you able to hear me? Hi, Miss Ivory.
Can you hear me, Miguel? Or
Oh, I can't hear you, Joe. I'm sorry.
I can hear you, and I can hear the both.
let me go back out and come back in.
Okay, you logged out.
Can you hear me now, what dear? Or Miguel?
I can hear you.
I can hear you too, Joe.
How about what dear? Yes?
Mr. Conley and Miss Ivory, are you okay if I share my screen for the presentation and walk you all through, or are you planning on doing that?
That's fine if you want to do that. Thanks, Warren.
No problem. Just give me a cue, Joe.
Yep. I got it right here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Miguel, are you happy with the signing?
Absolutely. You re-signed the best catcher in baseball,
Oh,
at
yeah.
least for
Oh,
the
they
next
did?
5 years? Absolutely.
I forgot Miss Ivory's a baseball fan too.
Oh, really?
Yes.
It's a great sport. It's a great sport.
Yes, I'm all in. Year round now.
Awesome.
I was always a spring sport lacrosse guy myself. Didn't really have too much time for baseball. A little too slow for me, my pace.
We didn't have lacrosse when I was growing up.
Joe, it's the creators game. It's been here. It's one of the longest standing traditions in North America.
The creators.
Played by the first people. So
I think Aaron was my favorite. I mean, him and Mays were my favorite players growing up, and Richie Allen. But that's. Did they have the Hall of Fame today, Miguel, or not? Is that today or this week? I think.
Mm-mm. Not for baseball.
Not for baseball.
No, I think they'll announce who's going in this year.
Right, they do, yeah. They said Bo is not gonna make it probably.
Good evening, everyone.
They were
Hi,
just,
Valerie. Good evening.
hi, Miss Valerie. Hi, Valerie.
How are you?
I'm well, and yourself?
Good.
Hi, Mr. McKay.
How are you, Miss Ivory?
Good, and you?
Good, thank you.
Okay, it is 6:30. Are we waiting for anyone else to join in, Mr. Conley?
I'm not sure. I know Jennifer was just we just had a meeting with teachers on strategic planning updates. I'm not sure she's going to join. Any other board members that you know of, Wadia?
I know Ms. Boykins is unavailable. I'll text Ms. Hopkins. She was in a meeting as well, so I'm not sure if she's going to be able to make. I'll text them just to confirm it right now. Okay. Mhm.
Ready,
All right, so I just sent a message and yep, there's Jennifer.
Jennifer was coming.
There you go. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Sorry I'm late.
evening. That's okay. Good evening, Miss Seward, Miss Bookman. Good evening.
Dr. B. Coates, okay.
Hi, Dr. B. Coates.
Hey, good evening. How are you?
I'm well, and yourself?
Doing great, thanks.
Okay, Ms. Boykins is saying she will be, and she's going to be a couple minutes late. All right, so it is now 6:33. I guess if you're ready, Mr. Conley, we can get started.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Ivory. And tonight on our agenda, we are reviewing the third and final document. We're looking at recruiting and hire procedures for different staff members in the district. As you remember, we have reviewed the recruiting and hiring procedures for the professional staff, which would be our teaching staff. And then in the prior meeting, we also reviewed the recruiting and hiring for administrative staff. So we have those documents, I think comments from the board, tightened up by myself, some revisions. So those are finished. And tonight is the final review of a document that the board had received. And this would be the classified or support staff group, and that would complete the really the essential groups that we have in the district. Under the support staff group, we would identify several groups in this area. The support staff union, the WPSPA, the William Penn Educational Support Personnel Administration, would be the groups that would be part of this employee group, and they would be the instructional assistants, the staff nurses, the secretaries, and then our library assistants. So those groups, those employee groups would comprise the support staff union bargaining unit. And just as information, their particular contract ends in June 30, and we have a committee that we are negotiating, Mr. Cuff, Ms. Hoff, myself, Mr. Khan, and we have a formal negotiating meeting on February 8th. So that process to formalize and put together a contract for the support staff union is in place, and negotiations are underway. We also, under the support staff group, would be our school safety officers, and there's approximately 26 members of our school safety officer group, and then we have a few confidential secretaries. So those three groups, the school safety officers, the confidential secretaries, and the support staff union, would be the groups that we would be in what we would call our classified and support staff group. And probably about 140 people all told in those 3 or 4 different groups. There's Mr. Tong and Ms. Boykin, so thank you. So we're just going to, the idea tonight was to, hopefully you've had some chance to look at this. I can run through this, and we can come up with a final document that we can include with our professional group document and our administrative group document that we've had worked through. And then all 3 groups, we would have a policy and procedure. So it's okay. Okay, so we can begin just looking through this document. Okay, thank you. And okay, and this is 7 pages. So I just want to highlight some of the the areas as we go through. And again, we hopefully you have this document, and if you've made comments, you can send them to me. But we some of the template is similar to the other areas. Others would be specific, but we're taking it through the the process from some very basic outlines and the procedures. Again, some common themes are we are not going to we're not accepting any longer unsolicited applications. They would come to me through emails or through the mail, any candidate for any position would have to go through our portal. And we've outlined that and stressed that in all of our positions. So that's also in our, process in there. Job description review, if we need that, if a position needs to be revised before we repost it, that would be in there. I'm going to tweak this a little bit to change that to Executive Director of Human Resources. So I'll tighten up some of that language. And again, some of the posting positions, again, where we're doing it internally, our own website, externally through, again, PenLink, PA REAP, some of the other indicators that we would have. Maybe not as extensive a search as if we were doing a school administrator or principal or some other positions, but still we want to expand our advertising to make sure we're going after and getting the best qualified people internally or externally for these positions. The posting per, we post all positions for vacant positions internally and externally. And again, the person who's applying, and we're emphasizing, must submit information through the portal. It just makes it a lot easier to get back to them, to schedule, to do all sorts of procedurals that if we don't have the information, and then we can always point to the posting as coming through the portal as far as when people applied, et cetera. So these are the formal packets that would come in. We look at the letter of interest, the resume, the clearances that are required, the Act 168, which are the forms that are now required under Pennsylvania that come from prior employers regarding any misconduct from the employee. So those are Act 168 forms that have been in the last 4 or 5 years required if someone's coming from another Pennsylvania school district or charter school. Again, resume through as a recommendation. So these are all in the formal application process, and all these documents can be uploaded. They're automated, and we send them an email that we have the process. We receive your information, and again, waiting for them to be scheduled for an interview. So it's just important that they come through the website, through the portal. Initial screening of applications, again, that we would do the screening for interviews. The requirements under the Pennsylvania Code for instructional assistants is that they must have what we call an associate's degree or a minimum of 60 college credits. So it's always the equivalent of an associate's degree or 60 college credits. So that is a prerequisite and that we need to review for people that are considering a instructional assistant position in the district. That's a state mandate. And then during the year, once people are hired, they would do highly qualified training. We have plenty of opportunities for that to happen during the course of the school year with professional development. But once, as a prerequisite to coming in, the instructional assistants must have those minimum of an associate's degree or 60 college credits, which we would review before they're considered a qualified applicant for the IA position. We do have a pre-employment test that we administer to secretarial support candidates, basically asking them to write a letter, do a spreadsheet, and some other basic mathematics and other word type problems. So those are administered and to secretarial support candidates. Process, again, would involve, if it's an IA, which would be more somebody like a principal, special ed supervisor, HR, would take the lead in the recruitment process. And again, we're just going through these, processes for interviewing human resources, contacts, interview questions. We have a battery of interview questions for all these positions in the support staff area, and several for initial interviews, second interviews, for instructional assistants, there's situational questions, IAs, et cetera. And again, walking through the process, the interview committee assesses the applicant's potential. We also, with the support staff candidates, all the questions have a rating scale. We need to evaluate each person. We give them a scale, we compare scores, so that it's a thought out process where each person on the interview committee rates each question, and then the group compares as we select the most promising candidates to continue the interview process. These are some characteristics we would look for, and business-like interviews, processing. Of course, all the interviews, at least for the past year and foreseeable future, are Zoom interviews. And these are just some general guidelines on interviewing. Then we take it to the first round of interviewing, where these specifically are, the first group would be more the IAs in section 2, building principal, assistant principal, sped ed director, or sped ed supervisor, possibly human resources if they're available, but at a minimum, a principal or assistant principal and a sped ed person can be involved in that, that interview. We may make a recommendation to add perhaps another teacher, a special ed teacher, if we added that in there perhaps. And then for central office positions, again, the supervisor of the vacant position, other central office administrator, and perhaps human resources. Those would be for the central office secretarial type positions. For the school safety officers, we would also have human resources and the school safety supervisor handle those interviews, and then perhaps and also a principal. And there's a second round of interviews for different positions. Again, just trying to go through what would be considered a process, basic interview process. We check 3 references for candidates. Either the principal or human resources would be involved with, doing the reference checks. That's item B is we did, I think, include that in all. That's just if someone refers a candidate, we would not usually have that person as a reference. We try to get another reference if we can for the person. Recent college grads, we would then check with maybe a co-op teacher or college supervisor. And we do have a lot of instructional assistants who not only have an associate's degree, but have a college degree. Sometimes they're teaching degrees and just not any teaching opportunities. So we would, follow through on that. Special education, again, with the special ed supervisor, HR, recommendation to the principal. And then we would, the principal would give all the hiring administrator in connection with human resources would make sure all the paperwork gets back to the human resources office. Human resources would review the paperwork, check the clearances. And usually for a final interview, the superintendent or the HR director can, this is not a must, it can also recommend a candidate and can interview the person for approval before the school board of directors for employment. And again, language, which we have the superintendent, if they want to review the candidate's resume or meet with the person, they can decline an interview and direct the interview committee to reopen a search. And that may not happen too often in this particular category, but we didn't want to take it out of the process as the superintendent is really the one making the recommendation in all areas to the board for all levels of job offers. And then the offers of employment come back to human resources, going through making the offer. And then the candidate, again, with review of human resources, must complete all the paperwork, have the clearances in line, the Act 168 forms prior to, before they could start with the district. And HR notifies the candidates and sets up a start date. So again, that's pretty in-depth process, kind of step by step that we would use in this process. It kind of mirrors some of the information that was in the teachers and the administrators, some that's not. So the idea that we would have consistency in a lot of areas in these recruiting and hiring procedures, and of course allow for some differences. So that was the idea for the the board to look at documents, make any comments, that then we can finalize these documents and have them on file and to be used as we move forward with our recruiting and hiring in all different areas. Any questions? What questions everybody have? Or any revisions or that people need to send me or the board members that, I think everyone have received the documents from Ms. Brown. And if there's any edits or comments, if we can look at that, that would be fine.
So board members, are we all good with what we presented?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we will continue these will be the procedures that we will be implementing. I know some of you have participated in the process, so we will continue to follow those processes for all three groups. And we will also make sure that, I think we need to make sure that we communicate with our staff what our process is that we have in place, because these become administrative administrative procedures, correct, Ms. Seward?
Administrative reg, yeah.
No, we don't use the word regulations.
Procedures.
Procedures, okay.
Got it. Okay.
No, that's all good. Just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Can we ask if the public has any, the attendees have any questions, please?
Yes, please do. Are there any hands? I don't see any hands raised. Let's see.
We don't have anything in the Q&A.
Yeah, I don't see anything in the Q&A.
Great. Just wanted to put it out there.
Yes. Thank you. Can I ask one question, Dr. B. Coates? When we disseminate this to the staff, will it be in a separate document that they will be able to review? So that way they don't have to go through will it be in the contract book, or will it be a separate document provided for them as it is updated?
What I'm thinking is that we will, once all three of them are completed, we will send an email to all employees advising them that these are administrative procedures that support policy that we have in place for hiring.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right. Are there any other questions or concerns at this time in regards to personnel? Hearing none. I say we can adjourn the meeting for this evening. Thank you, everyone, for coming in. Thank you, Mr. Conley, for the work you're
Thank you,
doing.
everyone.
Yes, and everyone have a great evening.
You too.
All right. Be well.